Hello, and welcome to A New Day with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Yockey, and today I have with me Sue Mathieson, who's actually out of Australia. And just to give you a little bit of background, for over 30 years, Sue has worked with CEOs and senior executives in the mining, manufacturing, and health industries, focusing on business and operations management. And in the mid-90s, the Victorian government instigated a major change in the health structure, moving from individual hospitals to the formation of networks. Sue successfully moved through this and went on to lead one of the teams that was instrumental in coordinating the source data that now supports the state health funding model for acute care. And for a number of years, Sue also helped to run a small family engineering business. In the late 90s, Sue suffered severe depression, ultimately losing her career. With clinical intervention, she recovered and went on to successfully reinvent herself. She broadened her experiences into contract management and property, co-authored a book, I Said Yes, which was published in December of 2017. She is now taking her experience and knowledge to help other business leaders succeed, not only financially, but also personally through her coaching business. I'd like to welcome Sue to my show.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that introduction.
Yeah.
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited and looking forward to having some time with you and chatting with you. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I am excited as well. You have quite a background to share with people, and to go from the experience of what you went through, it sounds like you were pretty successful in your career. What was going on that led you into being depressed, or that led you into depression?
Sure. I was in a relationship. I was married, and it was the continual, I guess, abuse. I have to put it that way. I don't like it, but at the end of the day, I have to say it was financial and emotional abuse, and it took its toll.
Yeah.
And I think, too, it was partly, I allowed some of that to happen too, because I was brought up with certain belief systems. And when you go into a marriage and you make that commitment, and I wanted to stand by that commitment. But standing back now, I realized there was a lot going on that I allowed to happen for various reasons. And unfortunately, the way the brain works, it slows down and it starts to protect the bits of us that are most important, and that's the impact. That's what we see is the depression. Yeah.
So it sounds like you kind of went into, what they say, our childhood stuff actually learns over time how to survive and thrive. And it sounds like you just got to a point where you went into survive mode, and depression was the way to go there.
You're right. Absolutely. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
So how is that impacting your because you were pretty successful as far as like your career was going, and it sounded like you had quite a bit going on. How did the depression impact you at work?
I lost my motivation. It lost my belief in myself that I was capable of what I was doing and working at the level I was. And I think, too, it also impacted on the speed at which my brain could function. So I wasn't thinking as quickly, and I was second guessing myself and not trusting in my knowledge, and that I really was good at what I was doing. And as you start to go into a negative space with that, it just keeps building on itself. And
Yeah.
because there's no, and that's where you get into that cycle and there's no intervention,
Mm.
it just kept building on itself in a downward way.
Yeah.
And so
Okay. And then you went through one of the traditional kind of recoveries. When you say you went into, let's see, you were in recovery, you had a successful recovery with clinical intervention. What is clinical intervention?
First of all, it was acknowledging to my doctor that I was feeling depressed. I
Yeah.
think that was the first step, was just to go, yeah, put pride aside. I have depression. I am feeling these symptoms. Yes. And it
Yeah.
was, he had been pushing me for, well, not pushing me, I shouldn't say that. He had been asking me questions over a period of probably 12 or 18 months. And
Yeah.
I had been, no, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
That pride was blocking me to a degree. And it was
Right.
when I actually thought, no, hang on, I have to admit,
Mm-hmm.
that was when he could do something. And as soon as I went on medication and the medication did its role in terms of balancing these horrible lows, and you'd have these short-term highs, but then you'd drop back down to a low again, and the medication sort of stabilizes that.
Yeah.
That was when I could actually start making decisions again
Nice.
and sit back and go, I'm not going to be help to anyone as wife, a mother, a friend, in business, in my career, if I don't take control.
Yeah. I
And really it was that point of saying, I have to take control. I have to be responsible.
when
And
I
that was,
when you talk about the pride part, it's actually a really great piece of that conversation, because I think many people, especially in high positions like corporations or owning businesses, people probably hide that kind of stuff, that pride, having that kind of pride where it's like, oh my gosh, people finding out, or maybe they're letting them down. So you start, like, I could imagine dealing with a lot of limiting beliefs that start piling up there. Like, oh, I'm going to look bad, if I take care of myself. And I think, from what I've seen, or, people that I've spoke to as well, they actually push themselves until they end up in the emergency room.
yeah.
So it takes courage, like you did, to say, you know what, I've got to set my pride aside and do something about this for yourself, to take care of you. So I hear self-care in that. It's
Oh,
really
absolutely.
tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there is self-care. Yeah.
yeah, were you doing self-care while you were working in that kind of field, or was you just working and then you were also dealing with, or maybe not dealing with, what was going on with you over here? Because I believe part of self-care is, acknowledging when it's time to stop, but for some people, they just don't know when.
Sure. I think part of the problem was I didn't even understand, like in my early career, through my teens, my 20s, even into my
Wow.
30s.
Yeah.
To be honest, I probably even wasn't really aware of what that meant and what that
Yeah.
looked like and how to go about that. So the short answer would be no, I wasn't doing enough self-care at all. And in hindsight, I probably would have been able to prevent a lot of what happened had I understood
Yeah.
what I know now
When
about the importance, not only the importance of it, but how to practice it,
Yeah.
self-care, in a really effective way that it is quite empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think in the line of work that you're doing, especially because you're working with businesses, do you see it more with men or women, or is it kind of cross board with both? As far as people pushing themselves, and maybe they just don't know either, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know anything about self-care, especially. And I think maybe these days women are finally just starting to say, whoa, like I've got to take care of me so that I can take care of everybody else. But in a business aspect, my thought would be there's probably a lot of people who don't know, like you didn't.
No. I think, I don't know that there would be so much difference between males and females. I would say it probably presents maybe in different ways, and the triggers might be different.
Okay.
For men who are in business, it might be that I will be thought less of if I'm not successful.
Right.
So the framework around which, or the drivers behind it, I think would be different between men and women.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that there's necessarily a big difference as to who it affects, more or less. But I think it's what I want to do is to be able to change people's perception that self-care is not something to be minimalized or thought less of, is actually really empowering.
Yeah.
But it's finding the way to do that that's appropriate for the person.
Yeah. So, well, you wrote a book, and would you like to talk more about that? I said yes. I love that title. What is your book about?
Look, it was a great title, and when the opportunity was presented to me to be a co-author, because it was 15 authors and we were all women from Australia and New Zealand.
Nice.
And yes, so that was the topic that was presented to us, and to me it was, I can't not write this. We just did a chapter each, and it was about what saying yes to opportunity meant to us, and how had that changed our relationships, our businesses, and that was really the theme behind it. For me, it was my journey probably from about August 2016, where I had started to sit back and really assess, what did I want to do? What was going to drive me through the twilight years of my working life and into retirement, if you want to call it retirement. I don't really see myself retiring, but anyway. But what did I really want to do? And so I spent some time just reassessing, and it was a catalyst to jumping into some new adventures. And part of it is the coaching business, is to take my experience personally and professionally and to work with other people to have a bigger impact, to step out of my comfort zone and broaden who I am as a person. So it was really my journey over the last, coming up to nearly 2 years. So
that's amazing. Because I was going to ask you, if you don't mind me asking, is
sure.
How long were you married?
I was married for 17 years.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Did you leave the relationship?
I did, yeah. So that I left 10 years ago.
Wow. I mean, so it really took you had to deal with the depression, and then that relationship, and then your own stuff on top of it, and then the loss of, your career. And when you were exiting the relationship, do you think that it made you a better person once you got out?
It was a process.
A process.
It's been, it's the last, look, trying to think. The last 10 years I have grown significantly,
Uh-huh.
but even more so the last 2 years. I have even grown at a faster rate and even more so. And that's partly because I'm not in the environment that I was in of negativity and being put down and feeling less than I am. But also, even in that process, I've recognised maybe part of where or what the drivers were for my ex-husband, for some of his behaviour.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest, and I only did this probably 2 months ago, maybe less, was to actually write a letter of forgiveness. And that
hurt.
It was hard, very emotional.
Yeah, I bet.
But incredibly releasing to not blame anymore, but to go that it was the situation at the time.
Yeah.
Since then, I've grown. I understand myself better. I understand how our emotions work, our brain functions, and the power of the brain, I'm just finding is incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And so it's my learning too. And I'm in a space where I guess I can embrace that.
Yeah. Go girl.
Thank you.
Your next book, Go Girl.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. You've given me a title.
Yeah. So I think that's really awesome because there's a lot of women who are probably in marriages that they don't really want to be in, but they're in them for whatever reason. And I feel like it would be mainly because they're the stories that they tell themselves about why they shouldn't leave, and probably because of our self-worth or our own stories of worthiness, I'm not deserving, I'm not lovable, whatever that story is. What would you tell women who might be in a similar situation as that you were in?
Oh, I think to start with, it's taking some time to even think about what are the stories. What am I telling myself?
Yeah.
And at least recognize what those words are, what the beliefs are. There may be a trigger that has come from. There may be an event that was really, really early in their life that was the start of that. And that might take some delving and a bit of time to think back over that. And so I think sometimes we tend to block that out too because it's not really serving us, but it's left us with this belief. So it's challenging the belief and but not even just not even trying to get rid of it so much, but replacing it with a belief that is far more constructive, that serves us and says that, I am worthy.
Yeah.
I am deserving of success, whatever avenue I choose to be in, whether it is running my own business or working for someone else, it doesn't matter. But we have so much to offer, and it takes courage. There's a little bit of even finding that space of stepping forward and going, I can do this. But it's starting with little steps and even, I guess, almost looking at where you want to be, almost like the mountaintop. I want to get to the mountaintop, but we know, whereas with hiking or anything like that, it's all the little steps along the way that get us to the mountaintop. So we're not going to do it in one leap.
Right.
And it's going, that's okay.
That's definitely
okay.
Yeah.
But it's starting. So yeah, I think it's what I would say is take some time out just to think about what am I telling myself, and challenging that is the starting point. Yeah.
And and I just want to make sure like the listeners know, like I'm not saying you would want to stay in a relationship, by no means, where there is any kind of abuse happening. From my own experience, my own personal experience, I've been married 22 years, and it wasn't until 8 years ago where I started quite challenging my own beliefs and the way I was thinking about my relationship. And as time has gone by and the tools that I've learned and the coaching that I've got, the programs that I've been in, have allowed me and to have a more safe, trusting relationship with my husband, only because he's a participant in that learning process as well. So yeah, definitely by no means, be in a relationship where it's abusive or
No.
but I think what you're saying is like really true, is, challenge your beliefs, and take on being courageous.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't know about, I would say there too, I'm not sure how you found it, but I've certainly found the more that I've worked on myself,
Mm-hmm.
the better my relationships with those around me. I think sometimes we tend to externalize it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I probably did that for a long time.
Yeah.
But the more that I've worked on myself, and that's becoming even more of a catalyst to keep working on myself, keep working on my attitudes, my beliefs, my mindset,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm seeing just amazing results coming out of that.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
Well, and like even just the forgiveness piece, what you were talking about, that does take something to do. And when you really take on yourself, your self-healing, self-care, growing, and trying out different things to find what works best for you, you're right. I think in my experience, I have definitely have literally watched shifts happen in things that I would say, oh, I wish he would change, or it was always him, him, him.
Yeah.
And one finger's pointing that way, three were pointing back.
That's right. Yeah. So true.
And I believe too that as people are developing themselves and growing and loving themselves more, if that person is just not growing with you, they will fade away.
Yes.
And so what a beautiful conversation. So tell me, how did you get into coaching?
In that journey of saying yes and stepping out, I started to get coaching myself.
Nice.
And so the value, and there was coaching on mindset, there was business coaching in that myself,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the value in coaching and understanding the difference that it can make, and that it is so worth the investment of time and money to get good coaching, that it's almost invaluable. And really, that, I guess it's been a natural progression then to go into coaching myself, to share and to keep, I almost paying it forward to a degree of the benefit that I've had as a person from the coaching that I've had, and then being able to share that with others. Yeah. So that's the main catalyst. Yeah.
So you do business coaching while also offering the personal aspect to it, which is really awesome. because it's in that individual person's performance that would have a business actually really work well. Because even with one employee in their performance, if it's lacking integrity or just missing an aspect, whether it's in their personal life or their business life, it impacts one or the other.
That's right.
And their finances. So what are you doing when you're coaching and working with businesses?
With any situation, whether it's personal or business, I spend a complimentary 90-minute session, and I really focus on the person, regardless of where we're going.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to get to know the person.
Yeah.
And also that's an opportunity to decide whether we're a good fit, because I'm not going to be right for everybody.
Right. And they might not be right for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
I know I've had that experience.
So starting with that in mind just gives us space to figure out, is this going to be a good working relationship or not?
Nice.
Coaching relationship.
Yeah.
So I do, regardless of where we're headed, I focus on the person, getting to understand them as an individual. And then from there, move into assuming that everybody's comfortable, move into a second session and start looking at some accountability and goals. And that's where we tend to branch out into, are we looking at personal goals or are we focusing on the business as such?
Yeah.
And move into accountability and then set up a program from there.
Nice.
But of course, at any time, we can say we do go down the business pathway. We can always jump back to a personal level because, as you said, the two are so integrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what could be happening at a personal level with an external trigger is going to impact on the business.
Right.
So it's addressing both. And so I look at both where it's needed, look at a behavioural aspect of whether there needs to be intervention from that perspective, but also from accountability in terms of meeting goals.
Yeah.
So it could be personal growth, or within the business, we could be looking at specific issues, whether it's related to new products and services, staff issues, financial cash flow issues, how to do budgeting. You know, we can go down any pathway within the business itself.
Nice.
But it's driven by the individual very much.
Yeah. That's awesome. So when you're working in the business side of things, especially when you're working with like the team of people, do you have like a strategy that you use to maybe get to the core performance of the group, or to make sure people are like in alignment with what they're up to in the company, or to make sure everybody's in alignment with the mission and the vision of the company?
It's actually one of the key points, I think, for business is to actually take some time to look at why, particularly for the business leader or the business owner, why are they in business in the first place?
Yeah.
What is their core purpose? Exactly for that reason, because once they can establish their reason for being there, then that's going, if they've got team issues, then that's going to help work out, is it because not everyone's on the same page? And what do we need to do to bring everybody on the same page? And it may be that values aren't aligned, or people have different perspectives about why they're there.
Yeah.
And that will then help to decide, well, does that person really either want to be there or should they be there?
Yeah.
And then from there start making some changes. Either the individual may choose to leave,
Yeah.
or they go, okay, no, I get where you're coming from. Let's refocus. And so you start to bring people on the same page and move forward.
Nice.
So, but I think
Yeah.
that the key thing is coming for the business owner to come back to,
Yeah.
why am I in business in the first place? Yeah.
Right. I was just thinking of when you were talking about the core, because that is the heart of the company, is their purpose and their why and their mission. And a book that I read a while back, probably about 5 years ago, it's called The 3 Laws of Performance, by, I believe it's Steve Zaffron. And there's two authors to it. A really great book about, now they're talking like in big corporation level, and they start off with this company out of that's in another country, and they dig, I don't know, they're all working underground. They have communities coming from all over the country that work at this one specific location, but there's a lot of death. There's just like amazing stuff happening, that a lot of racial stuff. And so there's this, like, it's just no good. And then these guys come in, and the Xantos group, I believe they're called, and literally, I got goosebumps thinking about it, but worked with the core leaders of the whole place. And I mean, before it's over, they're all like on the same page, working in sync. There's no more deaths because everybody was heard, and they worked through stuff. Like one lady was there working, and she had a resentment because, it had something to do with family and the deaths and stuff that were happening.
Right.
It was about color. It was
Yeah.
all about color, and what a powerful story. But the reason why I brought it up is because, I believe that if you don't have that core why, and the main owner working, maybe not even working, maybe not the owner, but or the leaders in the company, or if they're not aligned with what's going on with the people, then they're not having alignment in their company. And do you think it would eventually fade away, close down, or do you think they're just struggling to get through?
Well, I think they'll struggle to get through, but then it will also impact on decisions that are made. So if the business is starting to look at, say, another product or another service, if they just make a decision without looking at why they're in business, they could end up going off on all these different tangents.
Yeah.
And then they run into issues being able to provide that service, because the potential is that it conflicts with what other things that they're doing. And they start to have these internal conflicts, not between people necessarily, but between the demands of a particular service.
Okay.
And so then systems aren't streamlined, and so you've got people going off on different tangents, and that's when it starts to fall apart, and one isn't supporting the other, and ultimately and then there probably will be cash flow problems, and that will impact the sustainability of the business. So I think that's one reason why having that core understanding is just really imperative.
Yeah. And then probably communication, and I would also include integrity, because, integrity is huge. If you've got any lack of integrity, which we're not always 100% in integrity, but when you are out of integrity, even if it's the smallest thing, it causes unworkability in everything else. Just like self-care. If we're not taking care of ourselves while we're working or whatever, or if I wasn't taking care of my daughter and her needs, or if I wasn't doing my health needs, you know what I mean? So depending on which area that I'm slacking in, it just starts impacting those other areas. eventually something breaks.
That's right. It is so
Yeah.
true because it's out of alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So, and because of your background, you bring another perspective to the work environment or that business, because you could actually see someone who probably has depression, or in the in that line of it, where you can
Yeah.
recognize it. Do you actually say something to people when you notice it, or do you just like maybe do like some kind of group thing, or do you talk about it at all?
Look, I think it depends on the situation and depends on the person. I probably initially I wouldn't just go straight in and say, "Hey, look, I think you."
You're depressed.
No, that
You're
might not go
depressed.
down
You're
so
depressed.
well.
You're depressed.
No, I'd be more inclined to look, if it's a business, look at the systems that are in place that might be setting off some different triggers.
Mm,
If it's individuals, again, looking at and that's why I think it's, from a coaching perspective, working with individuals, that's the benefit of getting to know them first,
yeah.
because that's going to give me a little bit of a background story
Mm,
as to what am I looking out for,
yeah.
and start joining the dots a little bit as
Okay.
they talk about different aspects.
So you
And
actually talk to the individual employees, or are
look,
you just
it
talking
depends.
mainly to the owners?
Initially, the owners, so my main, I guess, point of contact
Uh-huh.
is the owner.
Okay.
From a business coaching point of view, that's the starting point. But if in the process of talking through issues from a business point of view, if it comes to the table that there's staffing issues, then it might be that we need to talk to individuals. I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
some work is okay at a group level, but it only goes so far.
Yeah.
And but really, I'm not going to force it upon anyone in that
Right. Right.
situation. It would be by invitation. Would to the individuals concerned? Would you
Right.
like this opportunity? And really, that it's up to them to
Yeah.
decide. Yeah, but again,
That's
that's
awesome.
why I offer two so their first 90-minute session and then a 60-minute session. They're both complementary
Mm-hmm.
for that purpose of
Really
working
good.
out, is this a good relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
That's amazing. I love what you do.
oh, thank you.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. All right. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the listeners? Um, any tips, tricks, or a message that you just want to make sure that they get today, before we end this interview?
Sure. I think from a business perspective, well, we've already talked about the importance of knowing your core purpose for why you're in business, and we've already talked about that. Probably another big one is, I would say, know your numbers. So many people that are in business, particularly smaller businesses, I think just get caught up in the routine of the day-to-day requirements of what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And they may not have that business background necessarily in terms of the financials to
Yeah.
understand. So my recommendation would be, if you don't understand your numbers, get help. Get someone in who does,
Yeah.
just to sit down and even look at what all your expenses are, what is your revenue,
Mm-hmm.
what's the difference, so that if things go a little bit left of centre and you don't have 2 or 3 months that are so good, how long can you actually keep going for before you need to look at some other strategies? And
Nice.
I think a lot of people just get caught up in the day-to-day,
Yeah.
and lose sight of that. So that would be one big one, is know your numbers but that has what that actually means. You know, it could have different meanings too, depending on the type of business.
Yeah.
You know, but so that's what coaching's for. To
I
help
know.
help with that.
I
So
think coaching has actually been around for probably forever, but you're just starting to see an increase in numbers of coaches, and they're in a wide range of the types of coaches, depending on whatever it is your need is. And yeah, I think it's amazing. And I think the coach, being a coach, it's an opportunity for a company to really let someone from the outside
yes,
come in with their expertise and then add value to that mission that they have up there. So I think that's a great tip. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to offer some fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And certainly as a business leader or a business owner, to never think of asking for that help as that it's less, makes them less than.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all. So
take care
comes
of
back
yourself.
to that.
and to
Exactly.
take care of themselves.
Exactly. Because it's their business that is going to win. It is them as an individual and their teams. They will benefit.
That's right.
It'll be a massive plus.
Yep. And how can people connect with you, Sue?
Okay, probably the easiest way is to go to my website. So that's Sue Mathieson, SUEMATHIESON.com.au. Go to the contact tab, pop in their details. If they would like more information about coaching specifically, just pop that in the comments section. I do have a webinar coming up soon, which will be specifically about business. So if they're interested in that, contact me and then I'll be able to send them some details as well.
If you have a link, I could actually include that on my Facebook page, A New Day with Susan, and in my post when I share about our interview.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Awesome. Okay.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sue, for your time and contributing to my show. I just really appreciate it. And I'm wondering if you guys are getting snow over there in Australia.
We've got rain. We've got rain, so it's cooling down.
Weather.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sue.
My pleasure. It has been wonderful. Loved it. And thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you.
You're welcome.